In a cozy home filled with the aroma of fresh pastries and brewing coffee, lived a little cat named Sparky. Sparky was no ordinary cat. He was a whirlwind of energy, a furry comet zooming through the house, leaving a trail of laughter and joy in his wake. His days were spent chasing shadows, pouncing on unsuspecting toys, and scaling curtains like a furry little superhero. He was a champion of play, a tiny tiger with a heart full of mirth. One day, while chasing a particularly elusive sunbeam, Sparky found himself in the living room. The room was bathed in the soft glow of afternoon sunlight, and in the corner sat an old rocking chair. In it sat the grandmother of the house, a sweet old lady with eyes as blue as forget-me-nots and a smile as warm as the summer sun. But today, her smile was missing, and her eyes were clouded with a deep sadness. This was unusual. Normally, she would be knitting by the window, humming a gentle tune, or reading a book aloud, her voice as soothing as a summer breeze. But today, she was still as a statue, lost in a world of quiet sorrow. Now, Sparky didn't understand the concept of sadness. All he knew was that this somber mood was like a dark cloud hanging over the usually bright and cheerful room. And being the playful little cat that he was, he decided to do what he did best: play. He brought her his favorite toy, a little mouse made of yarn and felt, and placed it at her feet. Then he sat back, tail twitching, eyes gleaming with mischief, waiting for her to start the game. But the old lady didn't move. She didn't even seem to notice the toy. Undeterred, Sparky decided to up the ante. He stood up, arched his back, and chased his own tail in a dizzying circle. He dashed around the room, a blur of white fur and flying whiskers, until he was panting, and the room was filled with his happy meows. Still, the old lady remained lost in her sadness. As an encore, Sparky decided to add a little dance to the mix. He leapt onto the arm of the sofa, struck a pose, and slowly began to shimmy. He swayed side to side, tail held high, and even added a few spins for good measure. But the old lady just sat there, her gaze distant, her shoulders slumped. Sparky was puzzled. He had given her a toy, played with his tail, and even danced for her. What more could he do? He sat down next to her, still trying to catch his breath from his earlier performance, and looked up at her with his big green eyes. For a moment, she didn't respond. Then, ever so slightly, she turned her head and looked down at him. Her eyes, though sad, held a glimmer of appreciation. She reached out a hand and stroked his head. "You're a good boy, Sparky," she whispered, her voice raspy with disuse. "A very good boy," and with that, she closed her eyes again, returning to her quiet sadness. Sparky didn't understand her words, but he could sense the emotion behind them. He had failed to lift her spirits, and as the minutes ticked by, he grew more and more dejected. His playful heart ached to see the sadness clouding the face that usually lit up with such warmth and cheer. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the room, Sparky got up. He was tired from his efforts and a bit hurt by the old lady's unchanging sadness. He walked over to her, jumped onto her lap, and curled up next to her. He snuggled close, burying his face in her lap, hoping that his small, furry body could somehow convey the love and affection he had for her. He stayed there for a long time, the silence broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. He didn't meow or purr. He didn't try to play or be playful. He was just there, a small, warm ball of fur offering silent comfort. The old lady didn't move, but Sparky could feel the slight rise and fall of her chest, a reassuring rhythm in the quiet room. After a while, something amazing happened. A small smile, like the first bloom of spring, appeared on the old lady's face. Her eyes, though still a bit cloudy, held a newfound sparkle. She stroked his head, her touch as gentle as the falling snow. "Thank you, Sparky," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I needed this," and as the twilight deepened outside, the grandmother and the kitten sat together in comfortable silence. The old lady's sadness hadn't vanished, but a sliver of light had appeared in the darkness. Over the next few days, Sparky continued to spend time with the old lady. He would curl up on her lap while she sat by the window, or he'd nudge his head under her hand, purring loudly as she stroked him. He never tried to chase away her sadness, but instead offered her the quiet gift of his presence. One day, as Sparky was basking in the warmth of the afternoon sun, he heard the old lady talking on the phone. Her voice, though still a bit shaky, had regained much of its strength. When she hung up, she was smiling, her eyes shining with happiness. "It's all right," she said softly, as if sharing a secret with the room. "I won't be alone. My granddaughter is coming to visit. She stay with me for a while," and sure enough, a few days later, the house was filled with the joyous laughter of a young girl. Sparky, always the socialite, welcomed the newcomer with a playful swat of his paw and a friendly headbutt. The old lady watched them interact, a broad smile on her face. "See, Sparky," she said, "I told you wouldn't be alone." As the years passed, Sparky grew older. His once boundless energy was now tempered with the wisdom and serenity that comes with age. He was still playful, but he also knew when to be still, when to offer a silent presence instead of a boisterous meow. One snowy afternoon, as he curled up on the old lady's lap, watching the snow fall outside, he realized that his greatest gift wasn't his energy or his playfulness, but his quiet comfort, his ability to be a steady, loving presence in a world that often felt too loud and too fast. It was a gift that had brought a smile to a sad face, a ray of sunshine into a cloudy day. It was the gift of simply being there, of offering a warm body and a steady purr in a world that sometimes forgot what it meant to slow down and cherish the quiet moments. For in the quiet moments, in the soft glow of a winter afternoon, surrounded by the soft blanket of snow, the old lady and the wise old cat found solace in each other's company. And Sparky, the little cat, who had once zoomed through life like a furry comet, learned that sometimes the greatest joy comes not from the wildest adventures, but from the simplest acts of love and kindness. The end.